Okay, welcome in episode show number 11 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. The Jaguars season is in the books. What is new with the Jaguars? Well, football, particularly NFL football, and maybe even college football with NIL and the transfer portal. Man, they're both almost year-round completely. Is there an off season? Not too much. Indiana wins the national championship of college football. Just so amazing. It really is. I think JC's back as our executive producer now. He's always been here, but he had a few days off, basking in the glow of the Buffalo Bills' victory over the Jaguars. And then sadly, Buffalo went down. You know, it was an overtime loss, right? Was that thing in overtime? And Buffalo had turnovers in the game, and then the coach McDermott got fired. Right after the loss, JC said McDermott is gone. They didn't immediately fire him. I guess he made the trip back with the team, and then he got fired a handful of hours after that. This is the Teal Shirt Report podcast, episode show number 11. What do I think of when I think of number 11? I actually think of two things now. I think of Steve Spurrier, Heisman Trophy winner. The Indiana quarterback won the Heisman Trophy. How deserving. Man. Steve Spurrier wore number 11. You know, the Indiana quarterback wears number 15, and he took off on one running play that looked very, shall we say, Tim Tebow-ish. It reminded me of Tim, the run. He made a great run during the championship victory over Miami. We'll take time to pause and say Indiana wins the title. Indiana Hoosiers 27, the Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21. Final score on Monday night, January the 19th. Of 2026. JC back from his little hiatus, his break. Bring me the coffee, JC. Here we go. Here comes the coffee. And there it is. Welcome to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Episode show number 11. Number 11. What a great number. Glad you're here. Okay. Glad you're here on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Not a lot to talk about, but sometimes when there's not a lot to talk about, there actually is. Indiana. Man, I have been thinking about this, and I didn't come on and do a podcast immediately after the game. Sometimes it's good to kind of do a couple of things like stew about it, think about it, check the perspective that this lines up in. Indiana winning the national championship, going wire to wire. And we're not talking about the old days when the team goes 11-0 and then wins a bowl game and they win the national title and they're 12-0. And I kind of like some of those days, actually. But this is wire to wire, 16-0. And the quarterback of Indiana, who I really didn't pay attention this year to the Heisman, Trophy Award and all that, but I know Fernando Mendoza won it. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback of Indiana, the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner, making history as the first Indiana Hoosier to receive the prestigious award since its inception back in 1935. Steve Spurrier gets a vote. Gator Danny Werfel gets a vote. Tim Tebow gets a vote. And I'm pretty sure they voted for this guy. What a great season. When he won the trophy, they're like 13-0, and now they're 16-0. There was none of this bad luck on winning the Heisman. And we're not even going to talk about anything concerning next year. We'll leave that up to folks like University of Florida Gator coach John Sumrall. But he's thinking about winning right away, and I hope he does as a Florida Gator fan. They got the orange and blue game. Believe it or not, the spring game's coming up in a few weeks in Gainesville for the Florida Gators. But we're going to talk about Indiana. This is kind of their time. They won the Big Ten title. I think all this kind of clued us in. Cignetti did a masterful job. Coach of the year. Who else could be? Nobody could be. Cignetti, Coach of the Year. Wins a Big Ten title at Indiana for the first time in decades. I think the last time they won a title, that might have even been a shared title back in the mid to late 60s. I believe, counting the shared title, I believe this is Indiana's third Big Ten title. Number 3. In how many years? However long Indiana's been playing college football for decades and decades and decades. Just like your favorite school and mine, like Florida, Florida State, Georgia and Auburn, been around for years, Alabama. But let's examine what the Indiana Hoosiers did. They won the Big Ten title. They were 12-0. They won the Big Ten title game, which made them 13-0. Then they get into the playoff, and everybody says, Indiana, they're the number 1 seed, but they're not really the number 1 team, and everybody was talking a lot of smack. But Cignetti and Indiana, they backed it all up. They blew out Bama 38-3. They beat Oregon. And, I heard Shane Matthews, I think he was on Buddy Martin's show, saying that, and again, we'll talk about Indiana not having any 5 stars. I bet some of those guys may be considered 5 stars now, even though they weren't coming out of high school. But I heard Shane Matthews talking about Indiana showed more speed than Alabama. I think Shane Matthews, when I listened to him on Buddy Martin's show back probably a couple of weeks ago or whenever after Indiana beat Alabama 38-3, heard Shane say they were more physical than Alabama. They were faster than Alabama. What's your thoughts, JC? That was a tough day for Alabama. Alabama made the playoff. Notre Dame did not. There's a lot of controversy about the 12 teams that got in. It's probably going to go to 16 teams. Indiana wire to wire. And what does this remind me of? I've got to salute Miami. I got to salute Indiana, but we have to salute Miami some too, because Miami played ball. The last month of the season, including the playoffs, they were playing good ball. And they didn't even win the ACC title. They didn't win nothing. They won some games. They won a couple of playoff games. You talk about Indiana and the games they won. They beat Oregon. They beat Alabama. They beat some good teams. Alabama, Oregon. And then they wind it up by beating Miami of Florida in the national championship game. Indiana Hoosiers 27, Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21. The final on Monday night, January the 19th of 2026. NFL playoff teams, AFC Denver will battle New England. Denver beat the Bills by a field goal in overtime. Then Coach McDermott got fired after the game. I don't think he created the turnovers that were made by the Bills, but they lose the game, but out the door. And JC, our executive producer, one of the biggest Buffalo Bills fans of all. And I got a friend of mine, JC, I went to high school with. It's a little bit of a long story, but he's a big Buffalo Bills fan too. So I know a lot of Buffalo Bills fans. So when Buffalo, even though I like Sean Payton and the job he's done at Denver, I felt really sad after the Bills beat my Jaguars in a close game. It was a close game, and then I said, I'm gonna root for the Bills the rest of the way. And man, that was even as exhausting as rooting for the Jags against the Bills. So, and then the Denver quarterback gets hurt like toward the end of the game, and he's out now. There'll be no Bo Nix. I'm sitting there saying the Jags, the Bills, and the Broncos are all cursed. And probably the best team left is probably Seattle. And when you compare the Jacksonville Jaguars with some of these teams that are still left in the playoffs, the Jaguars did beat Denver in Denver. The Jaguars did not play New England this year. Early in the year, the Rams, in one of the rare blowouts, the Jaguars got blown out by the Rams. Really a bad game by the Jaguars. I believe that was a London game. And the Jags got beat by Seattle very early in the year. And after, that was a physical game, and there weren't that many points scored by the Jaguars. And Seattle's got a good defense. And their quarterback apparently has been bothered by an oblique, as they say. But Seattle, I walked away from early in the year. I believe that was back in September, probably late September. I walked away from the Seattle, where the Jaguars lost to Seattle, and the Seattle loss. I said, they got a good football team. And we did not know the Jaguars would go on to reel off like 8 wins in a row. The Texans are out after a 10-game winning streak. They're out. The Texans got beat by New England. The New England coach may be the coach of the year. It's either the New England coach or Liam Cohen. And on the NFC side, it's probably the Bears coach, although they've been eliminated. They got beat in overtime by a field goal by the Rams. Rams got a good quarterback. Seattle's got a good quarterback if he's healthy, and he should be now. New England has a guy like Drake May that has turned out that looks like he's becoming a franchise quarterback in New England as a young guy. Drake May's only been in the league, 3 years now, I believe, right? And he's come along so fast. Denver will have to play a backup quarterback after Bo Nix has gone down. What's the guy's name? Stenham, I believe. So I don't know where these playoffs take us. I just think the NFC is probably the stronger teams right now. Greg in our Facebook group pointed that out. He says he's going with the NFC teams. He believes they're much stronger after watching the last round of the playoffs, or the divisional round of the playoffs. Seattle versus the Rams, is that maybe really the early Super Bowl? And then you got Denver playing New England in the AFC title game, Seattle playing the Rams in the NFC title game. Let's go back to college football for a moment, and what the Indiana 16-0 season kind of reminds me of. There's only one thing that, and I'll compare NFL to college, and we don't normally like to do that, but, well, the players are being paid now. They're basically professionals, right? Or minor league professionals, but it's still college football with the names of the teams and the colors and, the colors of the uniforms, the names of the teams, the nicknames, the traditions. The network has latched on and said, we're grabbing that. But we want close games. And they got some good games. There were a couple of blowouts here and there in the playoff, but not many. I mean, you look at Indiana Hoosiers 27, Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21, a close game. Indiana's got a good defense. That's where they really improved their team to this year from last year, in my mind. But look at who Indiana beat in the playoffs. They went wire to wire. They won the Big Ten title. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. First time in decades, Indiana has won a title, a Big Ten title. The last time they won a Big Ten title, I think they actually shared the title back in the mid to late 60s. It's been decades. Indiana wins the Big Ten championship. And then Indiana wins the national championship. Indiana Hoosiers 27, Miami, Florida Hurricanes 21, a final in that Monday night, January the 19th of 2026 college football championship game. Indiana won the Big Ten. They won the national championship. Miami of Florida really didn't win anything but a couple of playoff games, right? I think they won 3. They were actually the 10th seed. So they actually, Miami beat Ohio State and won a couple other big games. And let's see, Miami ended up getting in the title game by beating Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin no longer there. The defense coordinator is now the head coach, and I believe he's a permanent head coach now. SEC football, man, they got a lot of new coaches. John Summerall with the Florida Gators. And I will tell you this, Summerall looks like he's getting some players. NIL, transfer portal. It looks like he's building a pretty good offensive line, and he's got 2 good running backs. And I think, as I pound the desk, I think Florida will move the football next year. I don't know how good the defense will be. It was better the last year or two with Billy Napier as the head coach, and but now there's a new defensive coordinator with Summerall. But Summerall's a defensive guy, so you got to think that defensive side of the ball is going to really mean something to him. So I think the defense in Florida is going to be better than average, maybe good. Can Florida win right away? Man, it's a tough schedule. That schedule next year in 2026, I was looking at it. Vanderbilt comes back on the schedule. It may be as tough or even tougher than it was the last couple of years for the Florida Gators. So now I've got to go to my comparison on the Indiana National Championship. Does this make Indiana the best college football team of all time? They're among the best. Nobody in Division I has won 16 games before. And they may not do it for a while, unless they go wire to wire and win all the playoff games. Indiana's 16-0. What does this? You might laugh, you might agree with me, you might say, "Oh, it's nothing like that." I think it reminds me of the Miami Dolphins' perfect season back in '72, 17-0. Won all their games. They won the playoff game. They won the Super Bowl. Indiana did a similar thing, 16-0. They win their conference and their conference championship game, won all the playoff games, won the title game 27-21 over the Miami of Florida Hurricanes. I would somewhat compare it. The Miami Dolphins' perfect season in 72, where they went 17-0 and won the Super Bowl. New England got close one time and got beat in the Super Bowl with an undefeated season. It didn't happen. It didn't happen for Brady and the Pats. So I would compare the Indiana championship of the 2025 season. The game played on January the 19th of 2026 will live in infamy. I said it'll live in infamy. Indiana Hoosiers 27, Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21. Jacksonville Icemen, by the way, not having the greatest year. I understand Bob Arablo, the guy that was one of the management group that was kind of helping to run the team with the Icemen, he's moved on to Trenton with a new Trenton, New Jersey team, and the Icemen are struggling. 15, 17, and 2. And we haven't seen a losing season with the Icemen in a number of years. This is like I think their 9th year in the league, but the Icemen are 15, 17, and 2. Hopefully they'll turn it around here in the second half of the year. Barry Manilow's concert was postponed. I thought it was going to come off, and then I found an article about how it was postponed, and Barry got some cancer on his lung that's going to be removed, and he's planning. The show was postponed for January the 12th at the Five-Star Veterans Memorial Arena, but I think he's having some surgery to get the cancer removed. There'll be some, I don't think there's going to be any, as Barry Manilow said, I don't think there's going to be any chemo or anything like that. At least that's what we're told. And then the show will be, I'm hearing May, that Barry Manilow will actually make good and make up the show from January the 12th sometime in May. When we get the exact dates, we'll put it up at bigjreport.com in the Neighbors 2 section. There'll be some good shows coming up in 2026. Foreigner with Lou Graham, Night Ranger. Journey's going to have I think they're calling it the Final Frontier Tour. Journey will be in Jacksonville as well. A lot of good shows coming up. Let's see, Judy Collins' show's already in the books. That was held in Ponte Vedra. There's a lot of shows coming up in Ponte Vedra. Daly's Place is shut down now due to the stadium construction. Daly's Place, located next to the Everbank Stadium, will be shut down for 2 years. But there's a lot of great venues. There's Florida Theater, a lot of shows at the Florida Theater, St. Augustine Amphitheater, Ponte Vedra Concert Hall. Check the Neighbors 2 section. at bigjreport.com. Want to thank our sponsors, Saucer Realty and Capital, for your real estate needs in North Florida. Saucer Realty and Capital. I talk to Larry nearly every week, and we talk football. He's a little down on the Gators. He said, man, I think Larry's got to they got to pull the bandwagon around for Larry again, and they got to win some games. Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate. Saucer Realty and Capital. Larry does a great job with his company as far as real estate goes, whether you're buying, selling, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate. There's a link for Saucer Realty and Capital on our homepage next to the North Florida weather report. 36 degrees this morning at 7:21 a.m. on this Wednesday morning, January the 21st of 2026. Had to kind of let it stew and simmer about Indiana winning the national title, but I'm telling you, this could end up being the best because they didn't have 5 stars. This was a team that Coach Cignetti put together, a team. The team was good last year. It was even better this year, and it went on a national title run. They improved the defense. Carson Beck went home without a title. I think this is his last year finally of college football, so he'll let the chips fall where they may in the NFL. Carson Beck out of Mandarin High School won a state championship at Mandarin in his junior year here in Jacksonville. Beck went on to Georgia. He was kind of an early commit at Alabama and never went there. And then I think he visited Florida, Miami, but then he went to Georgia. Decided to go to Georgia, played some big games at Georgia, got injured his last year at Georgia in the last game, I believe. Was at the SEC championship game. So Carson Beck has played in the big games. He got beat, sadly, in the title game for him. But Indiana, what a story. Indiana Hoosiers 27, Miami of Florida Hurricanes 21, the final on Monday night, January the 19th of 2026. NFL playoff teams, who do you like? Let me know in the comments. Smash our like button. Subscribe to the channel. We got over 2,000 subscribers. And the name of our channel is the Teal Shirt Report Podcast from bigjreport.com. On the Jaguars front, there's decisions that will be made by the GM, James Gladstone, along with the Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Tony Baselli. Coach Liam Cohen's got a shot to be Coach of the Year from 2025. In perspective, let's take a look at the Jaguars. 13-5, playoff loss to Buffalo. Then Buffalo loses to Denver in overtime. Jaguars beat Denver in a regular season game. It was kind of like rock, scissors, paper. But that's kind of how football is nowadays. The networks want good games. Denver, New England, could it be a good game even with the backup quarterback for Denver? Let me know in the comments. NFC, that may be your early Super Bowl. The Seattle Seahawks got a really good team, good defense. The LA Rams got a great quarterback and some offensive pieces. That'd be a good game. They're both from the same division. Seattle won the division. The Rams were like a game back? 49ers in that division made the playoffs too, and they got eliminated. 49ers were actually eliminated by Seattle. That game was like 41-6. Seattle's playing good. They're playing good football right now. So you got in the AFC title game, Denver versus New England. NFC title game, Seattle versus the Rams. Buffalo Bills fired their coach, McDermott. Sean McDermott's his name, right? Is that his name, Sean McDermott? But he got fired. But he made plenty of money. I mean, let's don't feel too sorry for these guys. Buffalo needs a change. They need a change. I don't know who the head coach will be. JC's mentioned a few names that some of them surprised me, but JC, our executive producer, knows his Buffalo Bills. JC, let us know. You've had a chance to stew on it for another day or two. Who do you think will be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills? And who deserves to be the coach of the year? Liam Cohen with the Jaguars, the Patriots head coach, or, and I guess when you talk about NFC, Ben Johnson, Chicago Bears made it deep in the playoffs and finally got beat by the Rams in overtime. 4 teams left: Denver versus New England in the AFC, Seattle versus the Rams in the NFC. We talked about North Florida Entertainment, the Icemen, like 2 games under 500 now. Jaguars got to make some decisions, but I really think Devin Lloyd, who had a great season, what did he have? 5 interceptions. He had a couple of pick sixes, but it may have been his career year. And he really had one very good year out of the 4 years he was with the Jaguars, and a lot of people point that out. I think he tests the market. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He'll test the market, and he's a good football player, and he may have another great year wherever he goes. But I think one of these real major market teams will spend the money. They'll overpay for Devin Lloyd. Maybe similarly to the way the Titans overpaid for Calvin Ridley. And Ridley spent a lot of time injured this past year. And the Titans, if you check, what did they win? 3 games this year, I believe? Something like that. They finished at the bottom of the AFC South Division. Playoffs, 4 teams left. AFC title game, Denver versus New England. NFC title game, Seattle versus the Rams. I kind of like Seattle among the 4 teams, but Seattle's got to beat the Rams. Denver's got a backup quarterback going. In New England, they got that young quarterback, Drake May. Does he keep it going in the next game? Maybe New England caught a break now that Denver has to play their backup quarterback. We've been brought to you by Salsa Realty and Capital for your real estate needs in North Florida. Also by the MadMaxMix.weebly.com. Check Max out tonight and every Wednesday night, the MadMaxMix.weebly.com. Max is a great show playing your classic rock classics, music, pop classics from days gone by. He's played Steely Dan for me, the Atlanta Rhythm section. I've heard him play Pink Floyd, even for others. John Lennon, he played a great John Lennon song for me one time. He plays the Allman Brothers. Check out the MadMaxMix.weebly.com every Wednesday night from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And Max does a cool thing now. He does, like, after his show, he's playing more songs, like an encore, long tracks. Check him out, the MadMaxMix.weebly.com every Wednesday night. It's a new year. Great new shows from Mad Max in 2026 at the MadMaxMix.weebly.com. Check out Mad Max's Mix of Music on the MadMaxMix.weebly.com on Wednesday nights. And then the very next night, this week and most every week, you got the pub. JC live from the pub on Thursday nights at LakeUfallahits.com. Great internet radio where it's all good. And both of these guys, Mad Max, the MadMaxMix.weebly.com on Wednesday nights, and JC live from the pub on Thursday nights. They take your request. Max will give you his phone number on Wednesday nights prior or about the time the show gets started. Max will give you his phone number and you can call him, or probably the better thing to do, text your request to Max. JC has a chat box on the website at LakeUfallahits.com. Absolutely great internet radio where it's all good. I'm Scott, your host for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Devin Lloyd will test the market. He will not be back with the Jaguars. I hope ETN could stay with the Jaguars because he does so many things, catching the ball, running the ball. He had a very good season in 2025. But I'm afraid, from what I'm hearing, ETN is probably gone too. I guess Rachel Tootin will be the number 1 running back if ETN cannot, and the Jaguars cannot work out a substantial deal for him. So we've covered a lot of things here on the Teal Shirt Report podcast. 29 minutes in, JC. We have been eloquently produced by our executive producer, JC. Also by, I want to thank Alex Nunnery, one of our producers, John Gaylor, our correspondent, and contributor to our podcast, and of course, BigJReport.com. So we talked about a lot. There's a lot evolving. 4 NFL teams left in the playoffs. The Indiana Hoosiers have won the entire thing in college football, a whole ball of wax going wire to wire. They're 16-0. the best college football team of all time. And that's debatable, but they're 16-0. No Division I team has won, not Division I team, has won 16 games in a season. Indiana Hoosiers 16-0. That's going to do it for the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I'm your host, Scott. Thank you for watching. Our YouTube channel is the Teal Shirt Report podcast from BigJReport.com. We invite you to subscribe to our channel like over 2,000 people have. We certainly invite you to smash that like button and give us the comments on anything we've talked about. College football, NFL playoffs, the Jaguars, North Florida entertainment, and more. We're 30 minutes in, JC. That's going to do it. The Teal Shirt Report podcast. I am your host, Scott. And man, thank you guys for tuning in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast, episode show number 11. Steve Spurrier, you're saluted. Marquis Slade wore number 11 with the Jaguars. What could have been? Injuries kind of took Marquis Slade out, sadly. Nice guy, I met him. JC talked to him, our executive producer talked to him on the phone. But Steve Spurrier, when I think of number 11, it's Steve Spurrier, University of Florida, played some NFL football with the 49ers, the Buccaneers. Spurrier was the 49ers punter back in the day, and he hung around as the backup quarterback to John Brody for years. You guys take care. I'm Scott with the Teal Shirt Report podcast, now 31 minutes. JC, this is your host, Scott. Man, I am out. You guys have a great day.